Chosen one, God's daily blessing comes with a final warning today, both arriving together, inseparable, because genuine blessing and honest warning often travel as companions rather than opposites, each one deepening the significance of the other rather than existing as entirely separate, unrelated messages competing for your attention. Stay with this message. Something good has been present in your life recently, quietly, perhaps easy to overlook amid everything else demanding your attention. Something else has also been waiting, patiently, for your honest engagement, a matter you have likely been circling around without ever fully addressing directly. This message speaks to both, the blessing and the warning together, because genuinely receiving one often requires genuinely engaging with the other. Breathe slowly. Let your body settle into stillness. Whatever has filled your attention recently, set it aside for these next several minutes, because what follows deserves genuine presence rather than the passing, distracted engagement most content receives during an ordinary day. Here is the blessing first, described specifically rather than left as vague, abstract spiritual language. Consider what has genuinely gone well in your life recently, even amid whatever difficulty may also currently be present. Perhaps a specific relationship that continues offering genuine support and care. Perhaps a specific capability or skill that continues serving you well, even when you rarely pause to consciously appreciate its ongoing presence and value. Perhaps simply the basic, often overlooked blessing of continued health, continued shelter, continued access to the resources that allow you to keep moving forward through your days. Take a genuine moment to name this blessing specifically, rather than leaving it as a vague, general impression. Naming it clearly, even briefly, tends to make gratitude considerably more felt and genuine than allowing appreciation to remain abstract and unexamined. This blessing, whatever specific form it takes in your own particular life, deserves genuine acknowledgement before this message continues toward the warning that accompanies it. Here is the warning now, offered honestly rather than dramatically, connecting directly to whatever specific matter has been quietly waiting for your attention. This message describes it as a final warning not because some external force is imposing an arbitrary deadline, but because a pattern of repeated recognition followed by repeated postponement, if it has indeed characterized your relationship with this particular matter, deserves honest naming as exactly that, a pattern requiring genuine interruption rather than continued repetition. Reflect honestly on what specific matter this warning is most directly speaking to in your own particular life. Perhaps a relationship requiring honest attention, whether repair, honest conversation, or honest release. Perhaps a decision that has remained suspended in ambiguity for far longer than its actual complexity would seem to genuinely require. Perhaps a piece of healing or self-examination that has been approached only partially, tentatively, never quite receiving the full, direct engagement it genuinely deserves. Perhaps simply a persistent, quiet sense that something in your life is not quite aligned with who you are becoming, a sense you have repeatedly noticed and repeatedly set aside. Whatever specific matter arose as you considered these possibilities, hold it clearly in mind as you continue through this reflection, because this warning is speaking directly to exactly this particular circumstance in your own life. Consider how many times something resembling this current moment of recognition has already surfaced in your awareness regarding this same particular matter. Moments when you sensed clearly what needed attention, only to set that recognition aside again once ordinary daily demands reclaimed your attention. This pattern of repeated recognition followed by repeated postponement deserves honest examination rather than continued, automatic dismissal, since patterns that persist this consistently rarely represent nothing more than passing, insignificant thought. If this particular pattern has indeed repeated multiple times regarding this same matter, this message's emphasis on finality deserves genuine consideration rather than dismissal. Patterns that repeat indefinitely without ever producing genuine resolution do not typically resolve themselves eventually through simple continued repetition. They typically require a deliberate, conscious interruption, a moment where the pattern itself is recognized clearly enough, and taken seriously enough, that genuine, different action finally follows rather than simply another instance of the same familiar cycle. Here is something worth understanding about why blessing and warning arrive together so consistently throughout genuine spiritual and psychological experience, rather than existing as entirely separate categories of message. Genuine blessing often requires space to be fully received, space that continued avoidance and unaddressed difficulty tends to quietly occupy, crowding out the capacity for full appreciation and presence that genuine blessing actually requires in order to be experienced completely. Consider whether the specific matter you have identified as connected to this warning might currently be limiting your capacity to fully receive and appreciate the blessing already present within your life. Unaddressed difficulty tends to consume mental and emotional energy that could otherwise be available for fuller presence and appreciation regarding whatever genuine good already exists within your particular circumstances. This means addressing this particular warning is not separate from receiving this particular blessing more fully. It is, in a genuine sense, part of the same overall process, releasing whatever has been consuming your capacity for full presence and appreciation, thereby creating more genuine space for the blessing already present within your life to be received more completely and consciously. Reflect on what specifically has been feeling most defeating or difficult about this particular matter, the specific quality of difficulty that has made continued avoidance feel more appealing than genuine engagement. Perhaps fear of a specific outcome. Perhaps simple exhaustion from having tried before without the resolution you genuinely hoped for. Perhaps uncertainty about how to even begin addressing something that has grown more complicated the longer it has remained unaddressed. Consider, too, whether this particular difficulty has changed in quality over time, whether it feels the same as it did when this matter first arose, or whether it has shifted, perhaps growing heavier through continued avoidance, perhaps becoming somewhat more familiar and therefore slightly less overwhelming, even while remaining genuinely unresolved. This kind of honest tracking can help you understand more clearly how this particular pattern has actually been evolving throughout the period it has remained present in your life. Whatever specific quality of difficulty applies to your own particular situation, this message is not asking you to resolve everything completely, immediately, within this single reflection. It is asking you to finally, genuinely acknowledge what has been quietly waiting, translating vague awareness into clear, honest recognition, the necessary first step before any further genuine engagement becomes possible. Fear frequently underlies whatever pattern of postponement has characterized your relationship with this particular matter, worth examining honestly rather than allowing it to operate silently in the background of continued avoidance. Fear of the specific outcome itself, worrying that genuine engagement will produce a result you do not want, whether rejection, failure, disappointment, or simply confirmation of something difficult you have been avoiding fully acknowledging. Fear of the process itself, the discomfort genuine engagement typically requires, difficult conversations, sustained effort, vulnerable exposure that may prove more demanding than continued avoidance currently feels. Fear of what genuine engagement might require you to subsequently change, recognizing that authentic response to this particular matter may not remain contained to this single circumstance alone, but might instead ripple outward into other areas of your life that have quietly organized themselves around your continued avoidance of this particular matter. Reflect honestly on which of these fears, or what combination, feels most relevant to your own particular situation. Naming this fear clearly, rather than experiencing it only as vague, undifferentiated resistance, tends to make it significantly more workable, allowing genuine examination rather than simply continuing to be controlled by its diffuse presence operating quietly in the background of your ongoing hesitation. Ask yourself, honestly, how likely the specific feared outcome actually is, based on genuine evidence rather than anxious imagination generating worst-case scenarios without adequate grounding in actual probability or precedent from your own life experience. Ask yourself, too, whether you would genuinely be unable to handle this feared outcome even if it did occur, given everything you have already survived and handled throughout your life up to this point. Most people, examining this question honestly rather than simply accepting their anxious assumption without genuine scrutiny, discover they possess significantly more resilience and capability than their fear typically credits them with. Evidence drawn directly from their own accumulated life experience rather than theoretical reassurance offered without genuine grounding in personal history and demonstrated capability. Consider, as well, what the actual cost of continued postponement genuinely amounts to, compared honestly against the cost of whatever specific outcome you have been fearing through that ongoing postponement. Sometimes, when genuinely examined side by side rather than left in vague comparison, the accumulated cost of extended avoidance proves significantly higher than the cost of the specific feared outcome that avoidance has been protecting against, a comparison worth making explicitly rather than allowing fear of one specific negative possibility to obscure the genuine, ongoing cost of the alternative pattern you have actually been living within. What genuine engagement with this particular matter might actually look like in practical terms deserves direct consideration, since this message is not suggesting reckless, impulsive action taken without any genuine thought or consideration. Genuine engagement involves honest reflection followed by concrete, deliberate action, translating whatever clarity has emerged through this reflection into actual, practical engagement with your real circumstances. If your identified matter involves a relationship, this might mean having one honest conversation, even a brief one, acknowledging directly what has shifted rather than continuing to pretend nothing has changed. It might mean simply naming, to yourself first, what you actually want from this relationship moving forward, clarifying your own genuine position before attempting to communicate it to anyone else. If your identified matter involves a decision, this might mean actually making that decision within the next day, rather than continuing to circle around it indefinitely, gathering more information that ultimately does not change the fundamental choice you already know you need to make. If your identified matter involves healing or self-examination, this might mean scheduling appropriate professional support if that feels relevant to whatever specific matter has been persisting, or simply sitting with the specific memory or pattern honestly, for a few minutes, allowing whatever feeling arises to be genuinely felt rather than continuing to be pushed aside through habitual avoidance. Whatever this specific first step turns out to be for your own particular situation, notice that it does not need to be large or dramatic in order to represent genuine movement. Meaningful change often begins with exactly this kind of small, initial crack, rather than the door swinging fully open all at once. This small beginning matters significantly, representing real engagement rather than continued postponement, even if the fuller resolution of whatever this matter genuinely involves still requires considerable additional time and effort beyond this initial step. Here is something further worth understanding about why this particular moment specifically calls for immediate engagement rather than allowing this recognition to fade back into the comfortable background of ordinary daily distraction the way similar recognitions have likely faded before. Truths like this one do not resolve themselves simply through continued waiting. They persist, quietly, consuming energy and attention even while remaining unaddressed, until either they are finally faced directly, or circumstances eventually force a more difficult reckoning that could have been approached more gently and deliberately had it been addressed earlier, while still within your own conscious control. Consider what specifically has made this particular matter so persistently difficult to face directly, beyond the general fear already discussed throughout this reflection. Sometimes a specific belief underlies the avoidance, a belief that facing this matter would require admitting something uncomfortable about yourself or your circumstances. Sometimes it is simply uncertainty about how to even begin, leading to indefinite postponement simply because a clear starting point has never felt fully available or obvious. Understanding which of these, or some combination, applies most accurately to your own specific situation can help you address the underlying obstacle more directly, rather than simply continuing to encounter the same resistance repeatedly without ever examining what specifically produces that resistance in the first place. Here is something worth understanding about support during this process, since facing this matter entirely alone often proves more difficult than necessary when genuine support could actually be available if you were willing to seek it out directly. Consider who in your life might serve as a valuable source of support as you begin addressing whatever specific matter this reflection has helped you identify and name clearly. This person does not need to have all the answers or perfect wisdom about your specific situation. They simply need to offer genuine, non-judgmental presence, someone willing to listen honestly as you work through whatever this particular matter requires of you, someone who can offer encouragement without either dismissing the genuine difficulty involved or reinforcing whatever fear or avoidance has kept you from addressing this truth directly up until this point. If professional support feels relevant to your specific matter, whether therapeutic support for healing work, career coaching for professional matters, or other appropriate professional resources, consider this a legitimate and valuable part of genuine engagement, rather than viewing it as somehow separate from or less significant than purely personal effort and determination alone. Doubt likely has arisen at some point during this reflection, questioning whether this message's central claim genuinely applies to your own specific situation, or whether it simply represents generic spiritual encouragement offered broadly without genuine connection to your actual, particular circumstances. This doubt deserves honest acknowledgement rather than automatic dismissal, though it also deserves genuine examination rather than uncritical acceptance as necessarily representing the complete truth of the matter. Consider whether your own doubt reflects genuine, careful evaluation concluding that no significant matter genuinely applies to your current circumstances, or whether it reflects something else, perhaps the very avoidance pattern this message has been describing throughout, manifesting specifically as skepticism toward the message itself rather than genuine, honest engagement with whatever matter might actually be relevant to your particular life and circumstances. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role that self-compassion plays throughout this entire process, since harsh self-judgment about having avoided this matter for however long you have been avoiding it tends to work against genuine engagement rather than supporting it. If you notice yourself criticizing yourself harshly for not having addressed this matter sooner, consider gently redirecting that criticism toward simple, compassionate acknowledgement instead, recognizing that avoidance is an extremely common human pattern, not a unique personal failing that sets you apart from everyone else who has ever struggled with facing something difficult directly. Self-compassion here does not mean excusing continued avoidance or treating this matter as unimportant simply because feeling compassion toward yourself feels more comfortable than genuine engagement. It means approaching yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would naturally extend to a friend facing a similar situation, while still maintaining genuine commitment to actually addressing the matter directly, rather than allowing self-compassion to become simply another sophisticated form of avoidance disguised as gentle self-care. Here is something further worth understanding about the specific relationship between this moment of recognition and your broader capacity for honest self-awareness going forward. Each time a person successfully moves from avoidance toward genuine engagement with a difficult matter, this success tends to build confidence and capacity for handling future instances of difficulty more effectively, creating a kind of positive cycle where genuine engagement becomes progressively easier to choose over continued avoidance, rather than remaining equally difficult each time a new difficult matter eventually emerges. This means the significance of what you do in response to this particular message extends beyond simply this one specific matter currently under consideration. It also contributes to your broader capacity for honest self-awareness and genuine engagement with difficulty, a capacity that will likely prove valuable again and again throughout your life, as new difficult matters inevitably continue emerging over time, as they do for every person regardless of how skillfully any particular instance happens to be navigated. Let us return now to the blessing this message opened with, since genuine engagement with this particular warning ultimately serves your capacity to receive that blessing more fully, rather than existing as an entirely separate, unrelated concern. Consider what it would mean to hold both simultaneously: genuine gratitude for whatever good already exists within your life, alongside genuine, honest engagement with whatever this warning has helped you identify as needing your attention. This combination, gratitude and honest engagement together, tends to prove more sustainable and more genuinely transformative than either alone, whether gratitude practiced while significant difficulty remains unaddressed and quietly consuming your capacity for full presence, or honest engagement with difficulty pursued without any accompanying appreciation for the genuine good that already exists alongside that difficulty within your particular life and circumstances. Coincide. Or what specific practice might help you hold both simultaneously moving forward, perhaps a daily moment of genuine gratitude alongside continued, deliberate attention to whatever this warning has helped you identify, allowing both practices to reinforce and support one another rather than treating them as competing priorities requiring separate, disconnected attention. Here is something worth understanding about timing during this particular period, since genuine, healthy engagement with significant matters does not necessarily require complete resolution within a single moment or even a single day. Genuine patience continues taking small, meaningful steps forward, remaining actively engaged with whatever this warning has identified, while also releasing the pressure of needing to know exactly how or when complete resolution will actually arrive. Consider what specific small actions might be worth taking during the coming days, connected to whatever specific matter you have identified as most relevant to this warning. These do not need to be dramatic or immediately transformative. They simply need to represent genuine, active engagement rather than passive waiting, small steps that continue building toward genuine resolution even before the full shape of that resolution has become entirely clear and visible. Here is a further consideration worth holding as you continue engaging with whatever this reflection has helped you identify and begin addressing. This warning is not asking you to abandon reasonable caution or careful judgment entirely. It is not asking you to make major, irreversible decisions impulsively, without any genuine thought or consideration. It is simply asking you to engage genuinely, to take real, meaningful action rather than continuing indefinite postponement, while still exercising whatever reasonable care and judgment any significant decision or action genuinely deserves. Think about how you might balance genuine, timely engagement with continued reasonable care and judgment, rather than assuming these two priorities must necessarily conflict with each other. Timely engagement might mean beginning today, taking that first small step already discussed, rather than continuing to postpone indefinitely. Continued reasonable care might mean allowing subsequent steps to unfold thoughtfully, with appropriate consideration, rather than rushing toward premature resolution simply for the sake of quickly completing what genuinely requires more patient, careful development over time. Consider what specific daily practices might help you remain grounded and genuinely engaged during this particular period, rather than either collapsing into hopeless resignation or spinning into anxious, desperate striving that could actually work against the calm, honest engagement this particular matter genuinely requires. Simple daily practices, brief moments of stillness, honest reflection on what you have already survived and what you have already learned, consistent small actions toward whatever engagement feels most relevant to your specific situation, these tend to serve genuine progress far better than either extreme of passive resignation or anxious, forceful striving. Consider, as well, who in your life might serve as a source of perspective and encouragement during this particular time, someone who can offer honest reflection when your own perspective becomes clouded by fear or exhaustion, someone who genuinely believes in your capacity to face this particular matter, rather than someone who might inadvertently reinforce your doubts or discourage the genuine engagement this message is asking you to cautiously begin. If such a person exists in your life, consider reaching out to them during this particular season, sharing at least some of what you have been carrying, allowing their support to help sustain you through these initial, often most challenging moments of finally beginning genuine engagement with whatever this warning has helped you identify. Here is something worth understanding about what genuinely changes once you begin this particular process of engagement, benefits extending well beyond simply resolving this specific matter alone. Many people report a broader sense of relief following genuine engagement with a long-avoided matter, a sense of increased integrity, of no longer carrying the quiet weight of something known but avoided, of living with greater alignment between what you genuinely know matters and how you are actually choosing to spend your time and attention. This broader relief matters significantly, offering benefit that extends well beyond simply the specific matter addressed, touching your overall sense of authenticity and self-trust in ways that ripple outward into how you approach other areas of your life as well, once this particular pattern of avoidance regarding this specific matter has genuinely begun shifting towards something more honest and engaged. Consider the specific role that your physical and emotional well-being plays throughout this particular period, since sustained engagement with genuine difficulty often demands more energy and resilience than ordinary daily life, meaning adequate rest, nourishment, and emotional support genuinely matter more right now than they might during more settled, stable periods. If your own well-being has been neglected recently, consider prioritizing renewed attention to these basic foundations, recognizing that sustainable engagement with this particular matter typically requires this kind of underlying support. Reflect, too, on what specific role your current environment plays in either supporting or complicating your ability to genuinely engage with this warning, since physical space, daily routines, and social surroundings all genuinely influence how smoothly meaningful change tends to unfold. Consider whether any specific adjustments to your current environment might genuinely support your continued engagement, whether reorganizing physical space, adjusting daily routines, or spending more intentional time with people who genuinely understand and support the direction you are now choosing to take. Examine what specific relationship exists between this current matter and your relationship with uncertainty more broadly, since some people navigate uncertainty relatively comfortably while others find it consistently more challenging, often connected to earlier life experiences that shape their overall relationship with unpredictability and change. If uncertainty feels particularly difficult for you personally, this awareness itself can help you approach this particular matter with appropriate self-compassion, recognizing that your particular difficulty with uncertainty reflects genuine, understandable history rather than any kind of personal failing or weakness. Consider, as well, what specific role your own values play in guiding you through this particular matter, since periods of significant decision or engagement often benefit considerably from returning to core, foundational values as a kind of compass, helping guide specific choices even when the overall path forward remains genuinely unclear in its complete, eventual form. Reflect on what values feel most important to you as you navigate this particular period, allowing those values to inform specific choices and directions even amid whatever genuine uncertainty continues to exist. Explore, too, what specific role spiritual or philosophical practice might play in supporting your continued engagement with this matter, whether prayer, meditation, or simply consistent reflection connected to whatever framework genuinely resonates with your own particular worldview and understanding. Many people find that periods of significant challenge naturally deepen their spiritual or philosophical engagement, precisely because these periods tend to surface exactly the kind of larger questions about meaning, purpose, and direction that spiritual and philosophical practice has traditionally helped people navigate throughout human history and experience. Consider what specific role community might play in supporting both your gratitude and your continued engagement with this matter, since sharing genuine appreciation and honest struggle with others who understand often deepens both experiences beyond what purely private, individual reflection alone typically achieves. If a specific community, whether formal or informal, exists or could exist in your own particular life, consider whether connecting more intentionally with that community might offer valuable additional support as you continue holding both blessing and warning together throughout this particular period. Here is a final significant consideration before this message moves toward its close. This matter, whatever specific form it has taken in your own particular circumstances, has not persisted because something is wrong with you, or because you have somehow failed by not yet responding to it. Persistent difficulty of this kind simply reflects genuine significance, something worth continuing to seek your attention precisely because it matters, rather than reflecting any deficiency or failure on your part for having not yet fully engaged with it up until this point. Release whatever shame or self-criticism might have accumulated regarding your previous postponement of this particular matter. Shame does not accelerate genuine engagement. It simply adds unnecessary additional weight on top of whatever difficulty already exists in facing this matter directly. Approach this moment instead with genuine self-compassion, recognizing that postponement is an extremely common human pattern, alongside genuine commitment to finally responding differently than you have responded to similar previous opportunities for engagement. Before this message reaches its true close, take one final moment for yourself. Silently name, to yourself, the specific blessing you identified earlier in this reflection, allowing yourself a genuine moment of appreciation for its presence in your life. Then, silently name, to yourself, the specific matter you have identified as needing genuine attention, along with the specific first step you intend to take within the next day. This does not need to feel dramatic or overwhelming in order to matter significantly. It simply needs to feel genuine, real engagement with both the blessing and the warning this message has offered together, rather than continuing to hold either one as vague, unexamined impressions never quite receiving the direct, honest attention they both genuinely deserve. Trust that this message reached you today for a genuine reason, connecting specifically to something already present within your own life and awareness, rather than arriving randomly or without relevance to your particular circumstances. Something in you recognized enough significance in both the blessing and the warning to continue reading this far, past the point where you might have closed this message earlier had it genuinely carried no connection to anything real currently present within your own life. Consider, too, what it might mean to continue holding both blessing and honest engagement together moving forward, developing a consistent practice of noticing genuine good alongside continued, deliberate attention to whatever difficult matters genuinely require your engagement, rather than treating gratitude and honest self-examination as separate, unrelated practices requiring entirely different kinds of attention and effort. Reflect, as well, on how you will handle the inevitable moments of doubt or difficulty that are likely to arise as you continue this process beyond today, moments when the clarity you feel right now begins to feel more distant or uncertain amid the ordinary demands and complications of daily life. These moments of doubt do not indicate that your original recognition was somehow mistaken. They simply reflect the natural fluctuation that accompanies any genuine process of significant engagement and change. When these moments of doubt eventually arise, consider returning to this specific reflection, rereading whatever sections felt most significant during this initial encounter, allowing the content to reinforce your original commitment even as its initial emotional intensity has naturally softened somewhat with the passage of time. Consider, too, reaching out to whatever support person you have identified, sharing the specific doubt currently being experienced rather than allowing it to operate silently, potentially derailing your continued engagement. Consider what specific obstacles are most likely to arise as you continue translating today's recognition into sustained action over the coming weeks, obstacles worth anticipating now rather than being caught entirely unprepared when they eventually arise. Practical complications that make continued follow-through more difficult than it seemed during this initial moment of clarity. Old patterns of avoidance attempting to reassert themselves, particularly once the immediate emotional impact of this message begins to fade. Whatever specific obstacle feels most likely for your own particular situation, briefly considering in advance how you might respond to it can help you navigate it more effectively when it actually arises. Think about what genuine progress will actually look like over the coming weeks, recognizing that most significant matters worth genuinely addressing rarely resolve completely within a single conversation or action. Progress more often looks like continued, honest engagement over time, gradual movement toward genuine resolution, even if that resolution takes considerably longer to fully develop than you might initially hope given the intensity of clarity present in this particular moment of first receiving this message. Consider, too, what specific record you might keep as you continue this process beyond today, some form of documentation that allows you to track genuine progress over time rather than relying purely on memory to preserve the clarity and commitment you feel right now. This does not need to be elaborate. A simple note, written somewhere you will actually encounter again, briefly describing what this matter has been about and the action you intend to take, can serve as valuable evidence later, helping you track whether genuine follow-through has actually occurred. Reflect on what genuine success actually looks like as you continue moving forward from today, recognizing that success rarely means instant, complete resolution achieved within a single conversation or action. Success more often looks like consistent, honest engagement over time, gradual movement in the direction of genuine resolution, alongside a continued, genuine practice of noticing and appreciating whatever blessing continues to exist within your particular life and circumstances, even amid whatever difficulty remains part of your ongoing journey. Consider, finally, what it would mean to trust that both this blessing and this warning arrived together out of genuine care, rather than arbitrary or coercive intention. This message is not trying to frighten you into hasty, poorly considered action, nor is it offering empty, disconnected reassurance that ignores genuine, ongoing difficulty. It is simply offering an honest, complete picture, genuine good already present within your life, alongside genuine encouragement to finally address what has been quietly waiting for your attention, both offered together because they genuinely belong together within the complete, honest picture of your actual, lived circumstances. Consider what specific weekly practice might help you maintain honest, ongoing engagement with both elements of this reflection, something brief and sustainable rather than elaborate and likely to be abandoned once initial motivation naturally diminishes over time. Perhaps a specific day each week dedicated to reviewing both your continued gratitude practice and your continued progress regarding whatever matter this warning has helped you identify. Reflect, too, on what genuine celebration might look like at various points throughout this ongoing process, recognizing that acknowledging genuine progress, however incremental, tends to sustain motivation far more effectively than exclusively focusing on the distant, complete resolution that remains this process's ultimate outcome. This celebration does not need to be elaborate. It might simply mean pausing periodically to genuinely acknowledge how far both your gratitude practice and your engagement with this particular matter have already carried you. This message reached you today for a reason. Trust that. Carry it with you. And when you are ready, not before, not because anyone told you to, but when you are genuinely ready, take your next step. Deep down, you already know what that step is. Thank you for receiving this message today, both the blessing and the warning it carried together. Be gentle with yourself as you continue holding genuine gratitude alongside honest engagement, one deliberate, patient step at a time. Michael says, "Thank you for listening, and for choosing, today, to receive both what has been given and what has been waiting."